Okay, so the last format of a line equation that I'm going to use to remind you of how to graph the equation of a line, how to show that line, is point-slope form. This particular equation is in point-slope form, which means that it follows this template. Y minus y sub 1 equals, that's just plain m times x minus x sub 1. Okay, the minuses are very important because I'm going to use those to help me figure out what comes out when I bring these numbers out. The template has a plain y and a plain x. Those stay x and y. It's the ones that have a subscript, the y sub 1 and the x sub 1. Those are the ones that we have filled in with some point from our line. And it's just like saying we have a point 1, point number 1. And we're telling you what the y value is of point number 1 and the x value is of point number 1. But because of those minuses, what you see is the opposite of what you get. In other words, if I see minus 2, since there's supposed to be a minus there anyway, that means that y sub 1 is really plus positive 2. And if I see a plus 5, well, there was supposed to be a minus there. To turn a minus into a plus means that we must have had minus a negative. So if I see a plus 5, that means x sub 1 is actually negative 5. So I have some random point, x sub 1, y sub 1, and its coordinates are negative 5, 2. This is very much like doing a line and slope intercept form. The way we start with the y-intercept. We start with a specific point. Just one point on the graph is all we need to start with. So here, our specific point is negative 5, 2. So you see, it's not a point on the y-axis. It's not a point on the x-axis. Not necessarily. It could be. But really, it could be any point, anywhere on the line. We're just using it as a starting place. Then, just like when I use slope-intercept form, I'm going to take my slope and I'm going to use that to find the other points on the line. So here my slope is negative 3. Now, first thing to remember about negative 3 is that if we write it in fractional form, it's negative 3 over 1. The next thing to realize is that if you have a negative number and you're writing it in a fraction, you can express it two different ways. These two things are really the same. Negative 3 over positive 1 is the same as positive 3 over negative 1. Either way, a negative divided by a positive, or a positive divided by a negative, either one of those is a negative number. So that means I can think of it either way. I can think of it as down 3 for every 1 I go to the right, or I can think of it as up 3 for every 1 I go to the left. So let's look at that. My starting place, remember, was at negative 5, 2. And I'm going to go down 3, every 1 I go to the right. Down 3, 1 to the right. Down 3, 1 to the right. It's the same thing as up 3, 1 to the left. Up 3, 1 to the left. Up 3, 1 to the left. Up 3, 1 to the left, and so on. And that way I can graph my line and try to make it as straight as possible. And that's how I graph a line from point-slope form. Now remember again that if you don't like the form that a line is written in, if you don't like the way that equation is written, you can just rewrite it. You can take an equation that's written in point-slope form or in standard form, and you can solve for y and get the y alone on one side so that now you have slope-intercept form.